Alright, so now this is
Yeah.
technically
What
recording.
if you send me your YouTube, I'll follow it too so I can watch it.
Oh, yeah, of course. I'll like, oh, and also don't like worry about taking notes or anything. I'll like do all that for you. If you want to, you can obviously, but I'll be taking notes and I'll send it all over afterwards.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Making my job easy.
Yeah. Um, okay, so I'm seeing that you're having a lot of fun with the board. The point of making this elite chess study is that whenever I make a move like this, you can see it,
Oh,
and if you make a move, then I can also see it, right? So it's like great.
okay.
Yeah. If you've ever worked with like Google Docs or something, it's like that, but for chess. Pretty exciting stuff.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so I have a
Yeah,
lot of, yeah.
I was just gonna ask you. I was trying to figure out how it works. I've been looking at this and stuff, but some of the things like sometimes it wouldn't pop up the input and the other analysis stuff. So I was gonna ask you exactly how this works, but that makes a lot of sense if it's like that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. If you have any questions, like, just feel free to ask. Like, I'm here.
Oh, perfect. Thanks.
No worries. Okay, so, I have a lot of chapters here. Like on the left, you should be able to see that there's 13 different chapters, right?
Uh,
There's no way that we get through this in half an hour. It would probably take an hour. If you want to split it up and do like half now, half some other time, we can do that, or we can go for the full hour now. It's all up to you. And we can also just skip ideas that you don't want to really explore right now.
okay. Yeah, I'm down to aim for the full hour. That sounds good to me.
All right, great. So let's just get started. This is from your game. You had the black pieces against
Okay.
someone named Crash Mayhem, and it was a 15-10 game, I believe. And
Mhm.
d4, d5, standard stuff. And here you basically transitioned into the Caro-Kann with c6,
Mhm.
knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, creating a long-term pin. And
Mhm.
eventually, when this pawn moves, this knight will be pinned. You played knight bd7, knight f3, h6, and I think this is all theory. I don't know if g5 is theory, but it's completely fine that you're playing it. Um,
Uh,
Often, if you have ideas, here I'm just gonna play some fantasy moves here. This won't ever actually happen in a game, obviously, but
uh,
actually, whoops. There, let's do this, and let's just pretend. I know I'm making a lot of random moves here. Just bear with me.
mhm.
I'm just trying to show you the
Okay.
concept, like this. If you ever see this kind of idea with this bishop on this diagonal and this bishop right here, chances are that if you can get your opponent to play h3, this bishop is now
Uh-huh.
hanging,
Uh,
right? So this is a mistake
yeah.
that a lot you'll encounter a lot in lower level games, and that is one of the primary reasons where g5 actually gets played. So if you want to play g5, of course it's completely fine. It's not like a bad idea or anything, but it does leave your king a little open. And typically speaking, you only want to play g5 when you have your bishop here on c5 on this diagonal, so that this is an idea.
Mhm.
Okay?
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know I
take
played a
the pawn
bunch
too
of random
far.
moves, but yeah. Okay,
Yeah, huh.
so back to g5. Your opponent went back after knight e4. Um, so this is a mistake, right? So tell me what I'm going to tell you if you can guess. Why did I?
It's
Mhm.
gonna lead to further development for him that I'm not developing any pieces whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. Like this knight is already very happy here, right? This is a happy knight. I mean,
Yeah.
look at all these sad pieces on the back rank. Like, give them some love too. Like, start moving this guy
Uh,
out, make room for this guy. Like, he probably wants to be either on a6 or b7. Get your queen onto
uh,
c7. Like, get your king castled. Either way, like, don't just move a piece that's already been moved, right? You probably heard this a million times, but
yeah.
yeah. And now you can see that after all is said and done, he has two pieces out, you only have one, and after you trade off, you have zero pieces, and he has one, and your pawn structure kind of sucks, to be completely honest with you.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah. In this sort of position, what your opponent could do, actually, if they wanted to be really mean, is they could just, after something like this, they could play something like c5, and now this bishop is useless for the rest of the game.
Wow.
Yeah, because there's no way for it to get out, right? Like it's just staring
Yeah.
at a rock the entire time. Like there's no like the easiest way to get this bishop out is probably something like this, which is absolutely ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an idea, and I want you to be aware of that when you put all your when you put all your pawns on one color square like this. Okay, instead your opponent played e3, you played e6, and I just want to showcase again that you're really behind on development here. By move 12, you want to be completed development, typically speaking. And what does completed development mean? It basically just means that your rooks are connected. At that point, you can say that you've completed development, and as you can see, for your rooks to be connected, there are still 3 things that need to happen, right? Or rather, castles, if that makes sense. So you're still 3 moves away from completing development, whereas your opponent is basically 1, 2, and then this queen can come with tempo or something on b6. So not as many moves away as you. You check here, which is good that you find this. You force your opponent to move his king and lose castling rights. And this is a position where I want you to go aggressive with something like h5, threatening to trap this bishop.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because all these squares are covered, so you want to threaten this. And chances are your opponent might not see this. This actually doesn't work here, my bad. But, like maybe here and then here even. Like, that's what I would play. So your opponent played h4. Queen e7, h5. You're getting cramped for space here. You try and make some room. This is like all just chess, not really too much to comment on. But just notice what the pawns have devolved to essentially, right? There's a gigantic pawn chain here. Your biggest pawn chain is something like this, which is not very impressive. And you can't castle kingside anymore. You can only castle queenside, which means that you're basically castling into the attack. Okay?
Yeah.
If you ever like read a chess book or something and it's like, or like you watch like a master game, you always find these incredible beautiful attacks, right? And one thing I want you to notice is the pawns. Whenever you get in one of those positions where one side is completely decimated, it's the pawns are typically in this exact formation, like just pointed towards where the king is going to be. And when the pawns are like this, it typically means that you're in for a bad time because this is coming, like all bad things.
Yeah.
So your opponent is playing this well, like fairly well. And as you can see, I just drew this here again. You're kind of castling into the attack, inviting it, saying you're better than your opponent, I mean, which is okay to do, just a little challenging. I think this is all fine. Your ideas make sense to me, and I can see why you played what you played. Here, like, inviting this check into this queen trade is a little careless, but like, I mean, you should use your time here, right? Because you only used sorry, I can't hear you if you're saying something.
I'm not saying anything.
Oh, okay. Let me know if everything is okay or if you want me to like explain anything more or whatnot. But
It's perfect right now.
oh, okay, bless. But yeah, this is a little careless. I can see why you played this move, right? You want to hit the bishop and the pawn, right? But
Yeah, exactly.
an easier way to do that might work better for your purposes is something like this, right?
That is good. I didn't think of that. Yeah.
And after something like this, let's just say that he stops checking. Let's say he plays a random move. Like, he has to defend this pawn. He has to keep an eye on this bishop, right? So, I mean, it's not, like, perfect. I'm not saying that this, like, wins the game on the spot or anything. But it's just an idea for, like I know that it can be difficult and daunting to calculate in chess, especially when there's, like, so many possibilities. But when it just comes down to when you have a mission in mind, your mission is to hit these 2 pieces. And you have to evaluate all the candidate moves, and I want you to think 2 moves in advance, essentially, or like 4 half moves in advance, you could even say, before you decide what you want to play. It's very easy to see that what white wants to do is take here and then play check again. So immediately, your brain should be able to rule this square out and go to this square instead, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. What I was thinking is, I thought that if I played the square, if I played c1,
Mm-hmm.
if king goes f2, I can't take either pieces, and my queen's kind of trapped on one half of the board.
You just have check.
Oh shoot, that's right. Yeah.
And if something like this, then you're the one that's on the attack. You have this check coming in. This is under threat. Like if like
Yeah. Okay.
this
Yeah,
is
that makes sense.
yeah. Like and there's actually no way to save this rook now, and this bishop is falling after. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
No.
Okay. I didn't see it.
Yeah. I mean no, but that's a good threat. Or sorry, a good idea. But yeah. I mean just keep in mind how powerful the queen really is. I guess in that kind of situation.
Mhm.
Uh. But yeah. Also, use a little bit more time. You can think of so you know how this chess game was technically 15-10, right?
Yeah.
But really, you can think of it as 30-20 because of the fact that your opponent also has a clock, and you can think on their time as well. Um,
Uh,
right, but that also means that the time on the clocks is relative, right? Like, for example, a 30-second advantage is nothing in like a classical game, right? But in a bullet game, when you only have 1 minute to start off with, 30 seconds can literally be half your time, right?
uh,
You always want to think of time as relative. When you have 13 minutes on the clock here and your opponent only has 5.5, you want to be spending more time because this is clearly a critical point of the game, right? Your king is open, his king is open. If you find the right sequence here, you might win. If you find the wrong one, then you'll lose. And in the game, you're just playing a little too quickly for my liking. But yeah, the game continues. I think you play fairly reasonable moves. Um, Unfortunately, you kind of blunder this, which
yeah.
yeah. So okay, look, I get why you wanted to move your king here. You want to protect this bishop, right? Makes sense. But what is this bishop doing here? Why do you want this bishop here?
I
Like,
actually don't know what I was doing there. I don't really remember this game too well.
oh, okay, sorry. I mean, I guess it's been like a week or two. But something like this is just much better, right? I'm hitting the rook.
Yeah.
This bishop is on a nice square. It's controlling all four quadrants of the board. Or even a move like this, out here or something. But the
Mm.
main idea with this is not only are you attacking this rook, but you're also threatening to come in and check. You're activating your
Oh,
pieces. Like, yeah.
yeah. I remembered I didn't want him to pin my knight, I mean my rook and my king. That's why I wanted to trade it out.
Oh, with this check.
Yeah. I didn't want to do that, so I was trying to trade bishop.
This is probably
Oh.
easier to draw.
Oh, that's even. Yeah, that's pretty good. Or better. Oh.
I
Yeah,
think.
I
Yeah.
don't see this.
No worries. Again, I didn't calculate that either, so I can't really take like credit for that or anything. It's just like chess instinct, I guess. I don't know. Um,
Uh,
and that will obviously just come with time. You can't like just grow that like in a night or something. But yeah, like I just knew that this move was like better than what you played. But yeah.
uh,
Um, After everything is said and done here, I mean, this is just losing. Not really much to say. You put like a valiant effort at the end here. You just blunder this though, and then it's over.
yeah.
Here you actually have some chances if you like play like this, but it's just there's nothing to really analyze here. Like yeah, you just yeah like I don't know why I actually circled these pieces here. Oh yeah, it seems like your opponent doesn't exactly know how to mate. I don't know if you know how to mate either. Do you? Like with king and rook?
No, I am horrible at this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'll blow like a +4, +5 lead quite often in this game.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. How about this? How about this? Here you play the white pieces, right? And I'll play the black ones, and try mating me. So just play the white pieces starting here. Okay.
See right here, it's like I don't know. Probably pull this back one honestly.
Okay. Seems you're not making much progress, I'll be honest.
Yeah, no, I'm yeah, because then you flip out the side.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, I didn't click that.
Oh, it's okay. We can go back if you'd like. It doesn't really matter. There you go.
Yeah, is that it? Okay.
So I mean, you found it, right? But it's not the easiest. Let me just create a new chapter real quick, and we'll do this properly. I'll just teach you how it's meant to be done. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, today actually, because I was doing the lessons on chess.com
mhm,
right before this,
mhm,
and I learned some super useful, I had no idea, about drawing a triangle with a pawn to see if your king can chase it.
mhm.
Because I feel like literally so many times I would chase a pawn thinking I had it, and there would be like one away, and I think it right there.
Mm.
So like even just that, like there's just so many of those little like tricks, I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. We actually call that the rule of the square, and I actually taught it to a student this afternoon. We can go over that sometime too if you want, but I think you have the general idea down if you're drawing the triangle. But here I'm just
Yeah,
gonna.
no, yeah, I got it now.
Okay, great. I'm just gonna mate you real quickly. You play the black,
Okay.
and I'm gonna explain what I'm gonna do as we do it. Okay. So my first
Sounds good.
move here is c5, or putting my rook here. And what this does is, okay, tell me how many squares the black king can go to right now.
5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can go to 5 different squares. And also, because my rook is cutting off these three, right?
Uh,
This king will never ever cross into this half of the board ever. So you can just like draw a box for this king almost, and that's what he's stuck with. That's like his entire playground. He's not crossing outside of that. So he's limited to 32 squares is what I'm trying to like convey to you, if that makes sense. And I just want to make this smaller. So here, make any move with black you want. You play the black pieces. Okay, I'll move my rook out to this side. Okay, I kind of messed this up, but it's okay. We all make mistakes. Okay, great. You helped me out. So in this position, when you come to this like formation with when the kings are exactly 1 square apart from one another and the rook is on the edge, what you can see here is that the king's forward 3 moves are all protected by my king. Okay? So
So you
now,
move your rook.
yes, exactly. And now,
Okay.
yeah. And now you're forced to go back again. So make your move.
Yeah. Then I would probably
Yeah. And now look, just notice. Now we went from 32 squares to 24 squares to play with. And I'm just going to keep doing this to you.
Yeah, then.
Now you can try and run, but you'll see that I eventually catch you. Okay, so that's not a good move because now I just move my rook up. And now you're stuck with just 12. Or sorry, 16. Yeah. So you want to stay as close to the center as possible, so this is probably your best move. Yeah. Okay, so you might be noticing that I'm lagging a move behind you, right? And obviously if I were to move my rook up, then you would just run away. Here, this way.
Yeah.
So, but you'll notice that eventually the board runs out. Right? It only goes A to H, like it doesn't go past that. And you're forced to bounce back. And this gets formed again.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, okay. So he's walking the entire time.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And you have no choice, right? There we go. So I just want you to remember this formation, and I'll give you a link where you can practice this all the time with the computer. And I recommend doing that like when you have some downtime.
Oh yeah, definitely will. That was really helpful.
Yeah, no worries. So, anyways, going back to the lesson, what I want you to focus on as a player right now, when you're just, really starting to like, get obsessed with chess, but you're still relatively new, is tactics. So here we have a sample game on e4, d5, e takes d5, queen takes d5, knight c3, and black played queen c6 here. So how can white punish this?
Yeah. You could take a bishop.
Yeah, exactly. So you can play the move here if you'd like.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. Exactly. So now this just ends the game, right? I mean, there's really nothing that black can
Yeah.
do. He's just going to be down a queen. Like, I mean, what do you want, right? Like, I have a queen and you
Uh,
don't. Like, the game's over. Um, why did I show this to you? Because it's very likely that at your level, this kind of blunder will happen, where your opponent won't notice this diagonal and just blunder into something simple like this. And by actively looking for tactics all the time, not only will you find and punish these more often, but you'll stop making the same mistakes yourself. And you'll easily add like 100, 200, even 300 rating points just by not falling for basic tactics.
uh,
Yeah, this I imagine you're like scrolling or something. If you scroll, it goes to the
yeah,
moves.
yeah, I didn't mean to hit that.
Hmm.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I've seen that before, and I never really knew the tactics. And literally, probably today, yesterday, I was watching those videos and I saw it. That's why I was able to recognize it. But would you say that on? Because I usually play king pawn opening. I usually go e4.
Hmm.
Because I know a lot of different things out of it. So on e4, d5, would you recommend taking instead of just closing the center up?
Oh, I think this is called the Scandinavian, and I think that
Uh,
taking and pushing are both okay. I just personally prefer taking. Let me just turn on Stockfish and see what Stockfish says. So Stockfish at depth 43, so it's seeing 43 moves ahead. Says taking is best. After that, it's knight c3. So pushing is
okay.
probably terrible. Yeah, pushing black can just play this, and now it's black center basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it's just
Okay.
awkward. But yeah, so take yeah, I would recommend taking. That's what I do. My games typically end up going something like this. The queen can like go all the way back even, but let's say the queen comes here, something like this. Uh, I don't really know. I'm just playing random moves here, but yeah, you can see the ideas being formed here already, and something like
Uh,
castles, and yeah, I don't know. Okay, anyways, uh, so you said that you're an e4 player. Do you want to explore the Roy Lopez, or would you like to explore the
sure.
King's Gambit? Okay, okay, great. So Roy Lopez starts with e4, right? And Black replies with
Uh,
e5. But before we get started with all that, I wanted to ask you, what would happen if Black instead played something like h6? What would you play as
uh,
White?
usually I just take center.
Mm-hmm. Perfect, excellent. Um, Playing d4 is easily the best move here, and the reason that black plays e5, and a lot of beginner players don't really understand this, is to counter control the center so that white just doesn't get everything that he wants. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So knight f3, controlling the center, knight c6, counter controlling, bishop b5. And this is the Roy Lopez. Sometimes it's also called the Spanish, but not in Spain. And then what we're doing is we're setting up a long-term pin here, right?
Uh,
Eventually, when this pawn moves, this knight will no longer be able to guard this pawn here. That's the idea. So after something like knight f6, what would your next move really be in this position? Ignoring the arrows.
yeah. I would say usually I'll just bring up the other knight.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's kind of what I do is bring out knights as soon as I can.
Okay. Okay, makes sense. Um, what about just taking this pawn?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Okay, so that's actually one of the lines I have here. After bishop takes c6, our knight is uncontested. But after d takes c6, can you see a trap for black after I take this pawn? It's a little difficult. Here, I'll just take it and you can try and find it.
Would it? I'm not sure. I assume it involves their knight taking our d4 pawn.
Okay, interesting. Interesting that your eye goes there. So,
Oh, would it be castling so that they can bring the rook out and then pin his knight to the king and move my horse and try to discover an attack?
yeah, wow, okay, yeah. I'm surprised you saw all that. Just, yeah, yes, it would. But
Sweet.
that's something we'll be looking at like in like 30 seconds. But before that, you can't take this pawn because you now have two undefended pieces in the center of the board, and the queen can come down to d4. And if you just move your knight back somewhere like here, this is already getting very ugly, right? Just after something like bishop f5, black is getting ready to castle. Like your pieces look awkward. You're gonna lose castling privileges if black wants, and it's just a very nice game for black, not for white. So this pawn take, never take this pawn. Don't be greedy, okay?
Don't take the e5 pawn?
Yeah, don't take the e5 pawn.
Okay.
In fact, I would even recommend not playing bishop takes c6. I would recommend after knight f6 to castle.
Oh, okay, right off the bat.
Yeah, so you sacrifice this pawn, and now, like you said earlier, do you remember what white's idea is?
Yeah, moving the f rook to the e file.
Exactly. Exactly. And now you can already see the nasty things are coming. After something like knight d6, you can play knight takes e5. And now let's say that your opponent is careless and they play knight takes b5, taking that free bishop. What does white have here? Yes, exactly. So here, play it out on the board for me. I'll defend. Exactly. Exactly. And now you're just up a queen. This is just such a sad game for black. I mean, we had chances, but now it's just all over, right? Yeah, exactly. This is completely over.
Yeah.
Okay. Another idea after knight f6 is d4, challenging the center more and saying that this knight is technically long-term pinned, so I can play something like d4 and get away with it. If black takes, then again, we also get this open file. And I recommend castling. And after something like bishop c5, protecting this pawn, because notice that, we have two attackers and there's only one defender. Bishop c5, adding the defender. We just have e5. And if the knight doesn't want to play a silly move like going back and he comes forward, then now this knight is loose, right? It's hanging. And a simple way to challenge it is with c3. Because obviously if black takes, then we just have queen takes, and now we're up a knight. And if black plays the best idea, which is to go back with the bishop, then we just take in the center, and we have a big, massive center, and all our moves flow naturally, right?
Interesting. That's good.
Yeah, it's real good. It's real good. And the last line that I want to show you after knight f6 is just d3. If d3, it's more of a passive move. I would only recommend this if you're playing someone that's like much better than you and you just want to draw. Then you can play something like d3, bishop c5, castles, knight d4, just take and push your pawn up. And now you have like a decent center. Nothing to like write home about, but you have some ideas of d4 in the long future, and your development is still fairly natural, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Do you have any questions about the Ruy Lopez, or are we ready to move on?
I have one question. So in the beginning, after this, how did they usually play the Ruy Lopez this way and then I pin? Yeah. What happens when it's contested like this? Is it better to just fall back and let them build like this, or how do you play that?
Okay, great question. So this is called Morphy's Defense, A6, and it's named after Paul Morphy, and it's based on the idea that I can't take here, because after takes, then this idea again, right? Like, the black queen is just a monster here. So, yes, the best move is to play bishop a4. And I know that as a beginner, you just want this b5 move to come and come with space. But in master games, you'll never see b5 played. You'll always see knight f6 played. And
Really?
yeah, if I turn Stockfish on right now, it actually recommends bishop e7 and knight f6. It really doesn't like a b5 at all. And after b5, it actually says that white is up half a pawn,
Huh.
even though the material is equal. And I know that this is a little more complicated to understand, but it's just, you know how like if you have like a little kid and they like don't want to eat their veggies, but you just tell them, see, your veggies is good for you, I promise. It's kind of like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was curious because I always see, like, I don't do the really low peasant because I always saw those pawn moves, and I don't know, I just felt like, I don't know, I didn't like it. So I was curious what you recommend there, but if falling back is the right thing.
Yeah, okay. So falling back here is okay because you're on this diagonal. If black wants to push more, then you can just either play a3 or a4, right? And your bishop will always be safe on this long diagonal. And you're looking at the f7 square, most importantly, right? You have ideas of playing d4 and knight out. Like I'll just show this to you really quickly. If black just continues developing, then you have d4, and let's just no, I'm just gonna play some random moves here, right? But you can already see how there's some pressure on black here, right? Our queen is coming out, and this is why Stockfish doesn't really like this.
Okay.
Okay, but however, I also just want to make another quick comment. If your opponent, let's say, plays something like this, then you have the time to play this move, c3. Okay, so you're playing c3 to center d4 and prepare it so that it's even stronger, and you're also getting ready to put your bishop on c2 instead.
Okay.
And after something like this, you're gonna play d4. You're gonna enjoy a nice game with your bishops pointed like this. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, but yeah, I can see why you're afraid of the b5 idea, but just don't be. There's really nothing to be scared of, and this expansion ultimately actually weakens this square that you're able to take advantage of. Right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, great. So do you want to look at the King's Gambit? Do you want to look at are you done with openings for now? Do you want to look at a black opening? What do you want to do?
Um, yeah, we go King's Gambit. That's what I usually run the most for. That's my favorite.
All right, so e4, e5, and King's Gambit starts with f4, challenge in the center, and obviously it's called the King's Gambit because it's on the king's side, right, instead of the Queen's Gambit. The idea behind this is that you want to immediately introduce imbalance to the center, and unlike the boring d4, d5 lines, this immediately starts the action, and it weakens the king. And, grandmasters have said that the King's Gambit is busted, right? They've said that, like, it's been solved, basically, and definitely loses, but still, anything is playable until, like, even until, like, 22, 2300, like, you can play this and win your games. So, what are some ideas and what are some lines? Well, e4, e5, f4, e takes f4, and I just want you to play knight f3 here. And I don't know what your opponents really play. The best move is g4 or g5. Sorry.
Yeah, so I know that whole line right there. You know how pawn comes up, then knight goes up to g5. But what I've always seen, I don't know why, is this.
Okay.
And it makes no sense to me. Like, so then usually I'll usually go c3, prepping for d4 up, and something like this happens, and then sometimes I'll bring my bishop out here, whatnot. So I don't know, but I was confused by the line.
No worries.
Okay. Yeah, I was just confused, I guess, by why they pulled out D6, you know?
Okay. So after d6, c3 is not a good idea.
Oh.
Sorry, not to like harp on your party or anything.
No.
But there is no need to prep d4. What are you prepping d4 against? What do you mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I watched the YouTube video that said play c3.
Oh, okay. I mean, if it's by like a grandmaster or something, they probably have like some crazy idea But to me, to a normal player, c3 is kind of a waste here. You can just play d4 immediately if you want. Even if the knight challenges, you have two defenders, first of all. So I don't really see what the idea is, and the bishop can't really come here because there's a pawn in the way. I would actually play bishop f4 immediately here, and then play d4, capture here. So I'm just gonna, here, let's just play some dummy moves. To call it that, I don't know. Let's say something like this, takes here, bishop, and yeah, like this is a good game. You know, I'm gonna slide my queen over. I'm gonna come over here with the queen, and I'm gonna just kill him, like on the g file. Okay, so this is what I would like go with. You don't have to prep c. If you've been having good results with that, then by all means continue with it. But yeah.
Yeah, not particularly, so I'll drop it.
Okay. I prepared like a whole thing for g5. Do you want to still go into it, or do you think it won't be so useful?
I think I know g5. Where this goes here, he plays down. This goes here. Whatever he pulls out, you attack king on that 7 square.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And then he'll take, and then you immediately just try to punish that.
Okay. You have some right ideas, I guess. Sorry. After g5, h4 is the best move, right? But I don't want you to play it because it's kind of a difficult thing to play, and instead I want you to play bishop bishop c4 here.
Okay.
And the reason I want you to play this is because it makes sense to a human. Now, an engine will say that h4 is best, but a human, even like some very strong players, prefer bishop to c4 because it does very, very human things, okay? It looks at the f7 square, it gets ready to castle. That's all we need. Okay? If your opponent pushes, then I don't even want you to move your knight. I want you to castle. This is called the Muzio Gambit. And after g takes f3, queen takes f3. As you can see, we have 3 pieces all pointed at the f7 square here. Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, if black is careless for like 1 or 2 moves, it's just mate. So you have a lot of ideas in this gambit, and I want you to play it. I think it's completely up your alley, and I think that you'll have good results with it. After something like queen f6, defending, you can even play e5, opening up the file. And obviously after queen takes, you would love to play rook e1, right? Just winning the queen. I mean, obviously you can't play it right now. Why not?
Because he'll take it.
Yeah, just lost, right? Okay, so instead, at this point, now that you've already sacrificed a piece and a pawn back, you want to sacrifice even more and play bishop takes f7. Really opening things up here. And as you can see, the king is lined up with our kind of rook and queen battery, facing some troubles. And here, I actually want you to play d4, going even further into this, sacrificing mode. After queen takes d4, this is where your move kind of really shines through, and the move is bishop e3. So this looks like a weird move, right?
Yeah, it just looks like it leaves the rook hanging on the left. But I mean, it makes perfect sense.
If queen takes b2, then just queen takes f4 is completely winning. And here, if the king goes back, then it's just mate in 1. Or sorry, queen takes f8 is mate in 1, right? And if the queen comes back, then you're just winning the queen. After queen c4, you just have, like, you just take the queen, right? If you want. So it's just completely winning like this. If queen takes b2. If black plays better or something, and they play something like queen d6 going back, obviously they can't take. Why can't they take?
Because queen will just take and the pawn's still pinned.
Yeah, exactly. You have a very good tactical eye. If queen d6, then again, there's a lot of threats. Even just after something like this, a normal, natural-looking move like queen b6 going for check and going for b2 pawn, just losing on the spot. What does it lose to? Yes, yes, exactly. And well, for one, you're gonna, this is a discovered attack, but also just looking at the activity of the pieces, even if you're down 2 pieces, black might as well be down 6 pieces because of the fact that none of the 6 pieces have moved off the back rank.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so that's one line with queen f6, but I'm gonna show you a few other lines. I don't want you to memorize these perfectly or anything. I just want you to remember the ideas. It's something like bishop c5, just king h1. And again, you just have a lot of pieces out. And this is something in particular that I want you to remember. If your game gets to something that looks like this, always look for this idea with knight d5. Okay?
Okay.
Why? Because you're hitting the queen and you're threatening the fourth. If obviously white moves back, then you can just take here, and again, you can see how this is collapsing. And if you don't take, if black's queen goes somewhere like here, then obviously this is a fork, right? And you're gonna pick up the rook. So
Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah, a very good line.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so just try and remember knight d5. That's the main move I want you to remember if your position goes something like this. If instead, after queen takes f3 all the way back here, your opponent plays something like knight f6, then just queen takes f4, and you're mating him. Like, the best move I think in this position is to give up the knight or something. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, it's just so bad. Yeah.
That's brutal.
Yeah. If your opponent just plays something random, then just just mate him. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, this gambit, this entire idea is all about putting pressure on the f7 square with this queen, rook, and bishop. That's it.
Yeah, so it's important to castle. I think that's my mistake I make. I usually castle pretty late, like 12 move or something with King's Gambit.
Yeah, no, you want to get out of the center as quickly as possible, because if you keep your king in the center, then this is always an idea that lurks in the position, right? Just because g3 does not work. Here, let's pretend I move this knight or something. If just like obviously moving the king is kind of shitty, but even g3 doesn't work because black can just take, right? So definitely recommend castling. It will just mean that you lose less. And losing less is good.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Sounds good, sounds good. Okay, what do you want to take a look at next? Do you want to go into some deeper ideas? We have around 20 minutes left, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Can we go over relative piece value, actually?
Okay, great. So this is the chapter I had for relative piece value, and the point I'm trying to make here is I think the material is even. Oh no, I gave white an extra pawn in this position, but it doesn't matter. Even if white didn't have this pawn, the material is fairly even, right? Like, but as you can tell, this pawn is not just any normal pawn, right? It's a pawn in the 7th rank, which means that it's basically worth. It's going to become a queen the next move, which means that I would probably value this pawn at around like 7 pawns worth, pretty much. If that kind of makes sense. And what I mean by relative piece value is that although, I mean, you know the denominations, right? Like a pawn is worth 1, a bishop and knight are 3, a rook is 5, and a queen is 9. Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I want you to, like, yes, keep that in mind. That's good. That is like, that's never going to be, like, wrong or anything. But typically speaking, you need to start thinking of pieces as worth more the further along they are in your enemy's territory. Okay? Do you know... okay, this is a little difficult to explain. I'll explain it in a second, but for now we'll just continue with this. But it's a good idea. What I just said. Sorry, I'm being a little awkward. But after like rook c8 check even, right? Something nice and simple. Just after everything trades, you can see that for the price of that pawn, we're basically traded everything, and now we're just up a whole piece, right? And this pawn is just gonna queen, and at the end of the day, you're gonna win. When we're analyzing,
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Can I go back to what I would have played? Like the thing I was looking at, I don't know. think I was messed up. I was looking at this.
Okay.
Because then no matter where he goes, you know what I mean, he's kind of pinned or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like say even if he plays here or something, out or here,
Mm-hmm.
and then he kind of has, no matter what he takes under anything, he's pinned here so he can't move that. He has to take and then whatever, you know.
Okay. Yeah, this is fine. What I played with Rook C8 is what I would play in like a real game. Like if like a 3 minute game or something. I mean, let's be honest, by the time we're in the end game, we have like 30 seconds or something, right? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, sure.
And it's just easier to play the game of chess when there's no pieces to play with, right?
That's true.
A quote that I like to remember is, because of how bad we are, you know how we blunder pieces all the time. Well, if you don't give me any pieces, then I can't blunder them. So if you just trade them all, you can't blunder them.
That should be scripture for me.
Yeah. So I think your move of Rook C7 is very strong. I would probably reply with something like this. And now, like, we just go down that same line, probably. Right? Like, what would you play here?
Probably down the same line.
I think this is an idea too, actually.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, no worries. Because yeah, this is the main idea in this position. This bishop is going to be one, and obviously black can't defend because I just trade everything and then I queen. Right. Okay. So, but yeah, like either way, like this is completely winning, so it doesn't even matter what you play. But yeah. So let's see what you played. Oh yeah, what I was illustrating here is that I would be able to pre-move pretty much this entire game into a win. Like if I had like 3 seconds left in this position, I would not be panicking very much. Because yeah, I know that sounds like crazy, and I'm not like trying to brag or anything. I mean, I'm sure that like better players could do it with even less time, but the point is, what you're gonna do is you're gonna put your bishop here. You're gonna then put your bishop here if the king starts attacking, right? Here, I'll draw black and red. You just want to play this, and then you're completely safe, right? Let's just make some random moves. I don't really know, but this structure with the bishop and the pawn can never be challenged, right? I can just leave this alone here for the rest of the game, and then I make moves with my king. I gobble up these pawns eventually. I play f4. I start walking this way. I win these pawns, and then I promote this. That's how I win this game with like 3 seconds. I just pre-move f4, and then if captures, captures, great. If not, I just move my king in, and this is an easy win. I just know that these pawns will probably promote. If the king comes to this side of the board, then this pawn promotes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is what I like as a player. I'm sure that you know, having a queen on the board is gonna be okay no matter what. Like in your line, like this line, it's fine. Obviously you're gonna win. But if you have 3 seconds left, this is harder to pre-move because I mean, I know this is more like a bullet thing, but let's say what if we let's just play some random moves here, I don't know. What if you play something like queen here or something, and your opponent tricked you with this? And you're already pre-moved something like f4, getting your king out, then you just lost your queen, right? And now the game's a little bit harder than it had to be.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And here's just an example again. You might have heard that bishops and knights, although they're both worth 3, they're only worth 3 depending on the state of the game, right? Bishops are typically worth more as the game goes on. Okay? Because as the game goes on, more and more things get traded, all the pawns fly off the board, and what can start happening is that the bishop has more and more open diagonals to control. Okay? So, meanwhile, so for example, let's pretend that the rook isn't hanging or anything, and let's just continue with the game. If something like bishop or something like b7, right, threatening to queen, right? What, as you can see, the pieces are very, very different in how they can react to this. The bishop can come swing over in one move and guard this square, right? Just bishop e5. If you only had a knight, that same square, it would take you 3 moves to get to. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
Similarly, the bishop can basically cross the entire board in one move, whereas the knight takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves to get to that square, I think. So basically, in closed positions in the beginning, it's better to have a knight. In open positions, it's better to have a bishop. And generally, as the game goes on, it will be more open, which is why you value bishops over knights, because the game is going to go on for longer.
Okay. So even though bishops are like limited characters that can only touch their own color, that's better than a knight in game.
Yes.
Okay.
It's bishops are also better if there's play on two sides of the board. Imagine if there was a pawn here and a pawn here, right?
Mhm.
A knight can't get to both of those things. A knight can only really, like, a knight is a shorter range piece, right? Like, this is the furthest this knight can go in one move. Like, it's pretty pathetic. Um, like, if there's two pawns that are racing down the board to queen, then I would 100% prefer a bishop, because the bishop can keep an eye on both sides of the board without, like, in a very fast like move. Whereas a knight would take forever to get to two sides. Like, if a knight was here, like 1, 2, 3 to get there, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to get here, like, ridiculous.
Mhm.
A bishop, 1, like 1, back here, 2, 3, like, that's it. So, like, practically, you'll want bishops more and more, as not only as you get higher rated, but also as you start getting into more end games without losing beforehand, or winning beforehand, I guess.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, but obviously don't take that as gospel. There's many situations where knights are better. It's just that
Yeah, of
typically,
course.
yeah. So here's another game. I think this is actually like a 800 rated game, so it's a little lower than where you are. It might be 1,000 rated actually, but anyways, it doesn't matter. The Queen's Gambit was played, and oh wait, do you actually even really want to go over this? I guess the only interesting concept here is the difference between relative and absolute pins. You probably understand this concept since you read chess books, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so absolute basically means that the knight can't move at all. Like, if you try and move it, this white knight,
Uh-huh.
it won't move. Whereas this knight could technically move and, give up a queen.
Uh-huh.
And this is actually an idea in some openings. We won't take a look at that right now. So I had a few things here for you. Do you want to just take a look at the endgame real quick in the last 10 minutes?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, great. So this was played by Capablanca and Tartakower. You probably know Capablanca.
Yeah, I do.
You probably haven't heard of Tartakower.
Nope.
Yeah, unfortunately, that guy never won a world championship, so you tend to not hear about those people. But he was a very, very strong master in his own right, and he has a lot of good chess quotes, mostly about like torture and how much playing chess sucks. Anyways, we'll go through the game pretty easily. You can go through this at your own time if you want. I included the annotations by two other excellent players, Alakine. I don't know if you've heard of him, and Reddy.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, yeah, both great players in their own right, and they annotated this game, so you should definitely be listening to them more than me. But what I have here is basically some ideas that I wanted to highlight. Um, so after the start of the game, a few things have happened. One, white has doubled c pawns, right?
Uh-huh.
But that's fairly easy to get rid of because I can push this, and I mean I just have a very, very strong center. And we have a bishop for a knight, okay? But black has a like counter control with this pawn, really suffocating our bishop and our queen. Sort of like limiting what I can do with my bishop. Like, I would really want my queen here. I want my bishop on like this kind of diagonal or something, but this pawn chain is limiting that. If that makes
Uh-huh.
sense. Okay, just continuing with the game. They're both great players. They blunder occasionally because this is the 1900s and people blunder all the time. But just going into the end game. So this is what I'd consider the end game, right? Both sides have a piece each, or sorry, two pieces each, and the pawns are equal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good night. Um. Okay. So what do you look at in this? Like when you look at this position, what stands out to you?
Well, obviously we have a light square bishop, and they're both on light squares, so maybe a possible pin. Obviously, the e file is an open file, so you want to get your rook on that.
Yeah.
Other than that, I see we have a pawn majority on the right in this drill check.
Excellent. No, that is exactly what I was looking for. We have a pawn majority on the right, and our opponent has a pawn majority on the left. This knight is also a little shitty. Like, it takes a lot of moves to be involved if we can get play on the king side. Okay? So this is a place where you'll see how a bishop can be better than a knight, because of the fact that I control both sides of the board, whereas you have to take a lot of time to come with the knight. Anyways, we play h5. It's not really a pawn sacrifice, right? If takes, I just play rook here, and I'm winning the pawn back. But yeah. Okay, so this is already an idea that I know you understand very, very well. Putting a rook on the 7th or the 2nd rank is always a strong rook. And sometimes if you have 2 rooks on the 7th, imagine if I had another rook here, they would be called pigs on the 7th, right? That's like a common like chess thing that we say. Just because of how like hungry they are to gobble up all the pawns, and how they kind of they're disgusting. Like, it's disgusting how strong rooks on the 7th are. Alekhine played rook c6, right? Why did Alekhine play this?
Trying to stop my rook from taking the c7.
And also creating this counterattack.
And also attack on c3, yeah.
Yep. Because they're both great players, g4, right? Taking this, I just take here, and that's fine. He played knight c4. Obviously, we don't want to trade this, because our bishop is doing much more work than this knight is. So we obviously Capablanca doesn't take. He plays g5, knight e3 check, king f3, advancing up the board, right? So here's something that you'll notice. Going back to this position just 2 moves ago, white is just better because of the fact that this king is free. Okay, I know that there's pawns in the way and whatnot, but eventually I'll march up like this, and I'll push this pawn up, and then I'll come all the way here, and I'll be all up in your space. Whereas this black king cannot. He can't even go past the first rank. Like, he literally is stuck there. Okay? In endgames, you always want to value king activity. Okay? If your king is in the center of the board, and there's only pawns left, chances are you're better. Okay? Okay, so knight e3, f3, knight f5, and here we take. The idea is that essentially, I mean, it's a little complicated, but if yes, that and also a few other things, but okay, essentially after that happens, the h5 square is open, which means that, and you'll see this being used, the h5 square can be infiltrated on with the king. So that's actually the point of playing bishop takes f5 here. Yeah, I like, so Alekhine says simple and compelling, but that's because he's a a master and we're just normal people. But the idea is that even if we're giving this up with check, it doesn't even matter because of the fact that we can run this way eventually. And obviously, why can't black just check here? What's wrong with this? What would you play as white?
Huh?
What do you play as white here?
Well, I was looking at this.
Yeah, exactly. And after I take? Yeah, and these two are like disgusting, right? They're gonna queen. I have a rook here, like I have a king here, like I got everything I wanted. So instead, g takes f5 after bishop takes, and I move my king. Again, I'm going to this h5 square, which you'll notice. And here, again, what Capablanca demonstrates is that he doesn't even care about this pawn. It's just g6, suffocating, and after something like king g5 here, this rook is under attack. Where would you move this rook, actually? Explain to me, or like just tell me, just like by instinct, where do you move?
Right there.
Okay, I take your pawn. And
Probably should have gone the other side over to there.
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So the masters skip this part. I mean, I feel like at a certain level, people might try playing something like this, keeping track of this pawn, right? But as you notice, Alkine actually calculates around 5, 6 moves ahead here and plays rook e4. You'll see why in a bit, but don't worry too much about it. King f6. Basically, okay. So what's the threat here? If I play something like this, what can white do?
Check with the pawn.
Okay, checking is good. There's something that's better.
Would it just be bishop over?
Nope, and that's a rook.
Rook
Yeah,
over.
but nope. There's something even better.
Taking the pawn and attacking the rook going down.
Nope.
Hmm.
It's just one move, and it's really strong.
H8.
Yeah. Why?
That's checkmate, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. It is checkmate. We're in that same like L sort of position with the king, the rook, and the other king, right? With one space in between the kings that we like discussed for like 20 minutes here. Right? Do you recognize that or no?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I wasn't looking at that at first, but now you said it, man.
It's the same thing.
Yeah,
It's the same exact thing. And again, I'm gonna like give you a few links and some recommendations. But I mean, G7 is obviously fine. Like rook G7 is or G7 is very strong. You're threatening to queen, and if something like this, then just queen wins the game. And if black king goes this way, then it's checkmate again. But checkmate in one is better than checkmate in two, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. So obviously, Tartakower, being a strong player, did not play a5. He defended against the checkmate by playing king g8. And now what would you play as white?
I'm still thinking H8 maybe, because then he has to go that way, and then pawn check, maybe king F1, then he could maybe. I don't know. Nope, that was a bad play, 100%.
Nah, I mean, if your opponent was drunk or something and gave you a free move, then this is good. Then this is very good. But yeah, tempo, right? Just one move makes all of the difference. So
Yeah.
I guess it's good that your idea that you have that idea though. Very strong, and half the time it would work, just not this time. Just not this half. Just rook g7 is good. If like so Tartakower just played rook h8, and now I go here, and now what's the threat again? If I play something random,
Then is it going to be king F1 then?
no, there's mate in one again.
Oh, yeah, rook C8.
Yeah, just rook down.
Yeah.
So here it's a little different, right? Because the king only covers these two squares, but fortunately we have this pawn. That basically, yeah. So same things. It's similar patterns. So now this rook e4 makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So Tartakower, being a very strong player, he calculated all of this all in advance, and that's why he played rook e4, so that in this position he could play rook e8 and not get checkmated.
Huh.
Yeah, pretty incredible, right?
That is.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that like you're gonna wake up tomorrow and be able to do all this, but I'm just saying like try and take some principles out of this and apply it to your own games. With having a rook on the 7th rank, with keeping track of a pawn and advancing it down the board, and with basically careening off the king using your own king. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
And now the simplest move. What would you play here as white actually?
That's white.
Yeah.
Probably king F1 to take away king's face and force the rook out.
Okay. Yeah, very strong. If I play here, I just take your rook.
Then that.
Okay, but now what?
Yeah, you're right.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Tricky, tricky. A lot of kids, when they see something like this, they'll just go for the check. Kids just love checking. I don't know why.
Uh,
And some kids will also just play g7. But it's good that you didn't just go for a random check because you saw that it didn't lead to anything. Capablanca
uh,
played the simplest move, just king takes f5. And the rest of the endgame is a little boring and not so instructive. But essentially, they just shuffle back and forth for a bit. Eventually, they trade all their pawns, and yeah, here he just resigned because there's no way to stop this pawn from queening and this pawn from falling. Like, there's just nothing that black can do in this position. Okay. I hope that was
so,
helpful. Yeah.
yeah, that was super helpful. Thank you. That was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any
I'm
questions?
definitely gonna go play with these chapters and whatnot. That was really good.
Yeah, no, for sure. Do you have any questions in particular about this?
Um, I don't think so. Not particular. Digesting what I learned.
Mm-hmm. And do you want to go over anything in particular? I know we talked about a lot today.
Um, I don't think so. I think that was pretty good. I don't have any specific questions. Just kind of have to play with it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I'll be like typing up a couple of notes and sending them over to you.
Mm,
And yeah, I'll also send this entire recording over, and it'll be on YouTube. Um,
perfect.
and yeah, I hope to see you again soon and continue working with you. Thank you so much for your time
Yeah,
today.
that would be awesome.